Most of us have had experience with tequila in college, perhaps in the form of shots accompanied by lime and salt while on wild spring break. Tequila is the bad boy of spirits, but some bad boys turn out to be sophisticated men, as in the case with some añejos and other aged tequilas. If you're tasting alongside with me today in these lectures, you're going to need the following spirits: a silver rum, a blanco tequila, a mezcal, 100% agave, same age as mezcal, so preferably reposado, which we have here, a highland tequila or blend tequila, a lowland herradura tequila, a joven or gold tequila, and an añejo tequila. Sounds like a lot, I know, but as I said in the first lecture, you don't have to buy every one all at once to get something out of this lecture. I'll also show you how to make cocktails with tequila and mezcal at the end of this lecture with Gina Trisavani, who's won awards all over the country for her recipes. If you'd like to make them with us, make sure you look at the list of ingredients in your course guidebook. Toward the end of this lecture, we will make a classic margarita, a fancy tequila cocktail, and actually that's the name of it, it's not just fancy. It's also called a Cadillac margarita, and a mezcal smash. Tequila belongs to the larger category of spirits called mezcal. We'll learn the difference between tequila and mezcal a bit later though. Like rum, tequila and mezcal are made with a plant material. Rum is made with sugarcane, but tequila and mezcal are made from the agave plant. Although it seems as if the plant might be a closer relation to the cactus, it's a flowering plant that's more related to the yucca plant. They actually share the same genus, which is actually often used in ornamental landscaping. Historians say that around 100,000 BC, a volcano erupted in northwestern part of Mexico. The Aztecs have a legend that the lava set fire to some of the agave plants and filled the air with a sweet, smoky aroma. When they investigated, they found sap oozing from the heart of these plants. The Aztecs drank this sap and experienced a feeling of euphoria. They also used all part of the agave plant for things they needed every day, such as fibers, paper, and even footwear. This is why the ancient Aztecs believed that the agave was a gift from the gods. Later, they fermented the sap and made a kind of wine out of it that they called pulque, which allegedly was used to help ease the pain of being a human sacrifice. If that's true, I hope it was pretty strong stuff. When the Spanish conquistadors came along in the 1500s, they didn't like pulque very much. But they eventually ran out of their European brandy, so they developed a process for distilling pulque into a spirit they called vino mezcal. In the 1800s, production was booming around a town called Tequila in the state of Jalisco. And in the 1870s, Mexico exported its first tequila, actually mezcal, from the region of Tequila. I mentioned that rum and tequila have something in common because they're both made from plants, sugarcane and agave respectively. But what's the taste difference? Here I have a silver rum and a blanco tequila. Let's return to our 4 S's. Look at the color between these two. They look similar, don't they? Actually, they look exactly the same. They look kind of like water, don't they? They're white spirits. Now, let's sniff. Sniffing the rum first, it almost smells sweet, like something exotic, like coconut or something fruity. Now let's smell the white tequila. It smells light as well, but it's something very different. It smells herbaceous or something what some people call as vegetal. Now let's sip them. It's also very light on the palate, and you're noticing some of the similar flavors as you got on the nose. Kind of fruity, light. Now let's taste the tequila. It's also very, very light, but you're going to notice how that flavor of that unique flavor of the herbaceousness or that little vegetal character is going to persist on the palate. This unique flavor that you get from tequila is the flavor from the agave plant. Now let's take this experiment a bit further. Let's add some vodka to the comparison. Here's another clear white liquor, and it's also based on a plant. This is potato vodka. Let's look at it. Notice it's also clear. It looks like water as well. Now let's sip it, or sniff it, I'm sorry. You're going to notice that the vodka smells more neutral than the tequila or the rum. It doesn't have those fruity kind of aromas that you saw in the rum or that kind of herbaceousness you saw in the tequila. And now let's go one step further. Let's turn this drink into a simple mixed drink by adding a few cubes of ice and some orange juice. Now we have what's called a screwdriver. The rum and orange juice is called a Cuban screwdriver, or a rum screwdriver. The tequila version of this drink has some grenadine syrup added to it, and it's called a tequila sunrise. And you'll notice the version is a bit harsher than the one with rum or vodka. Now let's sip it. You're going to notice the fruitiness of that, but you don't notice too much the vodka because it's a little bit more neutral than the others. If you taste each of these drinks and compare, you'll get a really good sense of how certain spirits interact with specific mixers. You can even try making this drink with scotch, which is called a whiskey orange. Do they all work well, or are some better than others? Try it and see for yourself. You're probably wondering about the differences between tequila and mezcal. You might think of this comparison as similar to the differences between champagne and sparkling wine. If your bubbly's not made in the region of Champagne, it's called sparkling wine. Likewise, it's only tequila if it comes from the region of Jalisco and is made from blue agave. In other words, all tequilas are mezcals, which is any spirit made from agave, but not all mezcals are tequilas. The part of the agave plant that can be used for tequila and mezcal is the root of the plant, or the head, depending on how you look at it. This part is called the piña. It generally takes 8 to 12 years for an agave plant to grow a piña that is large enough to use for tequila or mezcal production. In this age range, the piña weighs on average less than 200 pounds, but some can get as big as 300 pounds. And the older the plant, the larger the piña. When the leaves are cut away from the root, the piña kind of looks like a large pineapple, actually. The larger the piña, the more tequila or mezcal that can be produced from it. A producer can get about 1 liter of tequila or mezcal for every 15.4 pounds of piña. Thus, a 200-pound piña could yield almost 13 liters. Here I have 2 tequilas. One is from the highlands, actually it can be a blend, and the other is from the lowlands region of Herradura. Let's take a look at them. They both look fairly similar because they're both silver, they're both blancos. Now let's sniff the Patron first. Now let's smell the Herradura. You're going to notice a big difference between the aromas of these two. The Patron actually smells a bit fruitier and rounder, while the Herradura smells a bit earthier and a bit spicier. So now we're going to taste. Tasting the Patron, you roll it around on your tongue a little bit. It feels smooth and it feels round. And you're getting some of the similar things that you got on the nose, so it's a little bit fruitier, but you're still getting that flavor of the agave, that kind of herbaceousness. From the lowlands, the Herradura is very earthy and spicier, and on the palate, there's a persistence in it. The savor, when you savor it, it kind of lasts a long time. The reason for the difference in aroma and taste is that in the highlands, the agave plants tend to be larger, slower maturing, and higher in sugar. These characteristics yield a fruitier and more delicate spirit. Some regions in the lowlands, like Herradura, age their agaves longer, 10 or more years or so. Yet the climate conditions allow for a faster maturing agaves, and the result is an earthier, more robust tequila. The jimadores, or harvesters, cut the plants when the leaves develop a red coloration with red spots. Then they use a long, sharp tool called a koa to cut off the 200 or more spiky leaves. I mean, this is not an easy task. The jimadores tried to cut as close to the core as possible because the leaves can add quite a bit of bitterness to the resulting spirit. Once harvested, the piñas are taken to the distillery for cooking, then mashing, then fermenting, and distillation finally. Just as we saw with the base material, for rum and whiskey, you can't just crush up an agave, add yeast, and get something to distill. In order to get at the fermentable sugar, you have to cook the agave plant. Inside the piñas are hard balls of carbohydrates that hydrolyze when heated. When the piñas arrive at the distillery, they're heated by one of two methods: in an oven, called an horno, or in a pressurized cooker called an autoclave. Producers that like using the traditional roasting style use the hornos, which are like slow-bake ovens. The piñas cook for 36 to about 72 hours at about 60 to 80 degrees Celsius, or 140 to 176 degrees Fahrenheit. This starts the process of softening the fibers. The more modern method is to heat the piñas in an autoclave. It's a pressure cooker. This process is much faster, 6 hours compared to the 36 to 72 hours of the hornos, and it can yield a more aggressive spirit, as well as a smoky and kind of burnt aromas. Some mezcals are the result of baking the piñas slowly in rock-lined pits over charcoal that then are layered with palm mats and then earth. This process gives the mezcal some of its really strong, earthy, smoky flavors. There are two basic categories of tequila: 100% agave and mixtos. Mixtos are those tequilas that are made with at least 51% agave. The other 49% can be from other sugars such as molasses, as we saw with rum, or corn-based sugar syrup. Mixtos are not as strong in their agave flavors and are generally less expensive. Most 100% agave tequilas are pot stilled. The first time the wash goes through the pot still, the distillate gets to about 25 to 30% ABV. The heads and the tails are recycled with the second batch, and the second run gets the distillate to about 55% ABV. Mezcal and mixto tequilas are distilled only once, generally in a column still, while tequila is distilled 2 or 3 times. Just as with other spirits, the heads and the tails are removed. The heart is collected, and then it's ready for aging. The distillation process generally results in a difference in the congeners or flavor compounds. While the 100% agave tequila has some very complex and refined aromas, the mezcals and mixtos may have more congeners that are a bit more kind of rough around the edges. Let's see what impact this has on flavor. Here I have a mezcal and 100% agave tequila. Let's take a look at these. Well, they look sort of similar in color, and they should if they're about the same age, but this one has a little bit of probably caramel coloring in it. I'm going to smell and taste the Patron first. This is 100% agave, and you actually taste some of that, the agave plant, the herbaceousness, but it's very smooth and round. You got some kind of fruity-like textures in there. Now we're going to taste the mezcal. Already on the nose, you can smell it's very earthy and very spicy. And on the palate, you definitely get those smoky kind of burnt aromas. And it's a bit more robust. Remember we talked about the rock-lined pit oven fires by charcoal? That process contributes to these aromas for the mezcal. Now, do you notice the taste difference? There's a stronger heat on the back palate of the mezcal than the tequila, which is a bit smoother and rounder. When you're savoring it, our last S, which do you think seems to last a little bit longer? I think you're going to find that the 100% agave tequila does, and you'll notice that the flavors of the mezcal are, again, a little more earthy and rough and rugged. The other factors plus distillation contribute to these congeners that come through in the finish. You can look at the label on a bottle of tequila to learn how old it is and how it was aged. You will see some similarities here to rums from the former Spanish colonies, as we discussed in a previous lecture. Let's explore some common terms. The first one is blanco, meaning white or silver. These are tequilas that are not aged. They go straight into the bottle after distillation, or they may rest in stainless steel tanks. The point is, they don't see any oak. Joven, or gold, or suave, or abogado, this is the next level. Joven means young in Spanish, and these terms let you know that the tequila is unaged. However, you will notice that these tequilas have some color to them. Reposado. This is the next level. This is the first level of tequila that spends some time in oak. Some are held in very large oak vats, like 30,000 liters, while others see charred American oak, smaller barrels. Whichever oak vessel is used, the spirit ages inside for up to 1 year. The last is añejo. Añejo means mature, and these tequilas spend a minimum of about 12 months in barrel, although some age much, much longer. The barrel size is limited to only 600 liters. The smaller the barrel, the more influence the oak has on the spirit because of the surface area to spirit ratio. Now there's a new level called extra añejo. This term was introduced at the end of 2005. It refers to a tequila that sees a minimum of 4 years in wooden barrels, with the same size limit as añejo, which is 600 liters. What impact does all of this have on the taste of the spirit? Here I have a Joven gold tequila and an añejo. Let's take a look at these. If you notice the color of these two spirits, they kind of look the same. They both have a gold tinge to them. When a spirit ages in barrel, it gains color. It goes from pale amber to deep gold and sometimes to a tawny brown. Both of these spirits have gold tones to them, but while the añejo was aged in oak, the Joven wasn't. So where then does the color in the Joven come from? Well, generally speaking, it's probably caramel coloring. While a gold color can be an indication of age, it isn't always. So the spirit you're looking at actually could be a Joven. Let's sniff both of these. Sniff first the Joven, the gold tequila. And then the añejo. You're going to find that there is a huge difference between these two. And that's not by accident. As the añejo ages in oak, it pulls the flavors from the barrel itself, such as compounds like lactones, vanillin, and other flavor compounds as well. This adds layers of flavors for what we call complexity. If you taste one and then the other, you're going to notice that the Joven has fewer layers of flavors. The reason for this is that the Joven hasn't seen any oak. Given the number of flavors the añejo has over the Joven, we would call the añejo more complex and the Joven simpler. Remember that complexity is one of the parameters of quality that we spoke about. Now we're going to sip. Sip the Joven first. And then the añejo. You may notice that the attack on the Joven is a bit more aggressive than the añejo, or you may find the añejo smoother and mellower. Barrels do have flavors that the spirit extracts from the oak, but there's another factor that affects the spirit that also stems from the barrel. Oak is a porous material that allows oxygen exchange. As oxygen interacts with the spirit itself, it smooths some of those kind of rough edges, mellowing the spirit. Evaporation also takes place, and this makes a difference in concentration. First, as water is lost because of the evaporation, the ratio of water to alcohol decreases, so the alcohol can sometimes be more concentrated. Second, evaporation also concentrates the flavor compounds and can increase the weight or body of the spirit. You may notice that the añejo, in this case, is a bit fuller on the palate than the Joven. Now when you savor these, finally the flavor of the añejo lasts a lot longer on the palate. The amount of time the flavor lasts on the palate is actually called length. Length is also a quality parameter, just like complexity for spirits. And it's the same for wine. The longer the length in general, the higher the quality of the spirit. The añejo has longer length than the Joven. This is likely partially due to the quality of the base materials, the agave, but it also stems from the number of flavors extracted from the concentration developed because of how it was aged. Okay, so to sum up what we've learned here, oak increases the number of flavors perceived on the palate, concentrates the flavors, and elongates the finish. After aging, the tequilas or mezcals are bottled. And what about the worm we've all heard so much about? It's a myth that tequila has a worm in the bottom of the bottle. However, in mezcal, particularly one from Oaxaca, may have a caterpillar larva, not a worm, dropped in it. Don't worry, we're not going to taste the larva, but feel free to go try it on your own. Instead, we're going to go straight to cocktails with Gina Chersavani. She'll be making a classic margarita, a fancy tequila cocktail, also known as a Cadillac margarita, and a mezcal smash, which is similar in style to an old-fashioned.
We're gonna make a classic margarita. First thing you're gonna need is tequila, and you have a choice. You can use silver, añejo, reposado. We're gonna go with the classic silver tequila today. It gives it more of a clean flavor and really brings out the lime. So the first thing that we're gonna need to do is take our lime and we're gonna cut off the ends and cut it down the middle, and we're gonna set it aside. We're gonna take a mixing glass and we're gonna measure out 1.5 ounces of silver tequila and 1 ounce of Cointreau. We're gonna set this a little bit aside and we're gonna squeeze our lime juice. You wanna make sure that you put the big side in and the small side out. You always wanna measure. Measuring is the key to making a good cocktail. You can use your eyes to do it sometimes, but it doesn't make the best drinks. So now we're gonna take this, pour it into our shaker, top it, and stretch it. Now that we're done, we're gonna tap it out. And we're gonna push this aside for 1 second, and I'm gonna show you how to rim a glass. So what you wanna do is, you wanna take a piece of your lime and go on the outside of the glass and all the way around, and not on the inside, because who wants a salt lick, right? So you're gonna take it and you're gonna tap it, lightly tap it into the salt. That way it gives you an even distribution and no clumping. So it looks kind of like that. I'm gonna put that down and we're gonna fill it with some cubed ice. Get our strainer, pour it in. And I'm gonna teach you how to do one other thing. We're gonna cut a wheel, a garnish. So you're gonna take the lime, make a slice, so it looks like a wagon wheel, and then you're gonna make a little slit so it sits on the side of the glass. And that is a classic margarita. We're gonna make a fancy tequila drink. Some of you may know it as a Cadillac margarita. So let's get started. First thing you're gonna do is cut off the ends of your orange. Cut it right down the middle. We're gonna leave that on the side. And then we're gonna do the same for our lime. Cut off both ends, cut it down the middle, and leave it on the side. Get ourselves a mixing glass, and we're gonna measure 1 ounce of the tequila, and then 1 ounce of Grand Marnier. Then we are going to juice our orange juice for 1.5 ounces. And we're gonna add that. And we're gonna flip this around. This is the 1 ounce side. We're gonna do a 1/4 ounce. So you wanna fill it halfway. And we're gonna pour that in. Now we're gonna take some ice, cap off our drink, and we're gonna shake it. Then we're gonna take our glass, strain our cocktail, set this aside, and I'm gonna teach you how to do a flamed orange peel. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna cut your orange, you're gonna start from the top, and you're gonna come across the skin side. So what you wanna do is not have any of the flesh. So you wanna have the pip and then the zest. And you're gonna take it, you're gonna take a lighter, and you're gonna put it over it for about 2 seconds, and then you're gonna squeeze it to get that nice flame. So once around, drop it in, and that is your fancy tequila cocktail or a Cadillac margarita. We're gonna make a mezcal smash. So let's get started. First, we're gonna take our orange and we're gonna cut a slice. So we're gonna cut off the end and we're gonna set that aside. And then we're gonna do the same for our lemon. We're gonna cut off the end, put that on top. And then we're gonna cut one more of our lime and we have a slice. One of the things that's kind of key in this when you make the smash is you want to put the biggest one down first so they're in levels. So we're going to drop this in the bottom. So 1, 2, 3. And we're going to take a muddler. Now, there is no substitution for a muddler. Don't think because it's made out of wood, you can use a wooden spoon. Get a muddler. You're going to take it and you're going to press it in. So you're going to mash it in until all the juices have been released and you're getting a lot of that zest that's from the fruit. I wish you could smell this. It smells so good. Now we're going to measure out 2 ounces of mezcal. And in this case, we're using a Tobola. I love this because it's got a little bit of smoky chocolate undertones. And then we're going to use 1 ounce of simple syrup. And we're going to add our bitters. So 1, 2, 3. I like bitters. 2, 1 more. And then we're going to get a large ice cube. So we're going to use a bigger piece of ice, honestly, because it looks cooler. And drop it in. Grab a spoon. We're going to use the small side because you have fruit in the bottom and it's easier to get it to go around. And we're going to stir it for 30 rotations. And the reason why we're doing 30 rotations is because it allows the amount of time for the ice to melt and give the proper water content to a smash cocktail. 4, 3, 2, 1. And that is your mezcal smash.
In the next lecture, we'll be talking about cognac and brandy. If you want to taste with us, you'll need the following: whiskey, preferably a Scotch, cognac VS, cognac VSOP, cognac XO, Armagnac, and Calvados. Cognac and brandy are often associated with wealth, and we'll learn why these spirits can be expensive. But we'll also see that you don't have to be rich to enjoy cognac or brandy. So until next time, cheers.